They said some exes never really live your life. But what happens when your troublesome ex follows you everywhere, fights every new man in your life, and refuses to let you go? And what if, after years of drama, heartbreak, and shocking secrets, the same ex becomes the one person you cannot live without? This is the unbelievable story of Rita and Pascal, a love story full of scandal, suspense, and a shocking ending you will never see coming. And if you are just joining us, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story like this one. Rita never imagined her life would turn into a battlefield because of love. She grew up in Surulere, Lagos, a smart and ambitious girl who wanted nothing more than peace, success, and happiness. She met Pascal at the university in Enugu. Pascal was tall, light-skinned, with that kind of smile that could melt even the hardest heart. He was charming, funny, and knew exactly how to make a girl feel special. At first, Rita thought she had found a forever man. Their love was the kind of love that made people jealous on campus. They ate together, went to lectures together, prayed together, even dressed alike sometimes. Everyone called them Mr. and Mrs. Campus. But love stories don't always stay perfect. Pascal had one problem. He was too jealous, too controlling, too possessive. Rita loved him, but she also loved her freedom. She wanted to have male friends, attend events, and chase her dreams. But Pascal? No. He wanted her to himself. If she talked to any boy, he would frown, quarrel, and sometimes even fight. But Rita tolerated it for years. But after school, when she got a good job offer in Abuja, she decided she had had enough. She broke up with Pascal. She told him, I love you, but I need to breathe. I can't continue like this. Pascal begged, cried, promised to change, but Rita stood her ground. She moved to Abuja to start a new life, but she didn't know that her past was not ready to let her go. In Abuja, Rita started working in a law firm. Life was finally beginning to make sense. She even met a fine young man named Tunde. Tunde was gentle, soft-spoken with a stable job in an oil company. He treated Rita like a queen, something she always prayed for. But just when she thought she had escaped Pascal's shadow, trouble began. One evening, while Tunde was dropping her off at her apartment, a figure stepped out of the shadows. It was Pascal. Rita froze. How did he even find a new place? Pascal didn't smile. He dragged Tunde by the collar and shouted, Stay away from my woman. Before Rita could say a word, he punched Tunde in the face. Neighbors came out. People shouted. Police almost got involved, but Pascal disappeared into the night. That was the beginning of Rita's nightmare. Wherever she went, Pascal was there. At the office gate, at the mall, even at her church. It was as if he had spies everywhere. Any man that came close to her, Pascal would chase them away. He fought Tunde twice until Tunde gave up. He embarrassed another man named Kule at a restaurant by pouring water on him and calling him a thief. Rita was humiliated. She cried, shouted, begged Pascal to stop, but he didn't listen. She even blocked his number, but he always found another way. People in Abuja started calling him the shadow boyfriend. Rita almost went mad. Her friends advised her to get a restraining order, but deep down, Rita knew Pascal's problem wasn't wickedness. It was obsession. He loved her too much, but in a dangerous way. She hated him for stressing her life, but a small part of her still remembered the sweet boy she fell in love with back in school. This confusion tormented her. Things took another twist when Rita was promoted at work and had to travel to Port Harcourt for a company project. She thought maybe this fresh start would save her, but guess who appeared in Port Harcourt the same week? Pascal. Rita was shocked. It was like it was everywhere, like a ghost haunting her. He even started attending the same church in Port Harcourt. The new man she was talking to, Emeka, also ran away after Pascal confronted him in front of his friends. Rita's life was a mess. But then something strange happened. One night, Pascal followed Rita to a dinner party organized by her office. He got drunk, caused a scene, and embarrassed her before her boss. Rita was so angry. She slapped him in public and told him she never wanted to see him again. She even cursed him, saying, One day your stubbornness will destroy you. That night, Pascal disappeared. No calls, no text, nothing. For the first time in years, Rita had peace. She thought maybe he finally gave up. Months passed. Rita met another man, Chike, who was kind and patient. Chike knew her story and said he wasn't afraid of Pascal. For the first time, Rita felt hope. But just when she thought happiness was close, life threw her a bigger twist. One Sunday morning, while she was at church with Chike, she got shocking news. Pascal had been arrested. Apparently, he got into a fight with some cold boys at a club and they almost killed him. Rita was shaken. She rushed to the hospital to see him. When she saw Pascal lying there, weak, bruised, and helpless, her heart broke. She realized she still loved him. Pascal, with tears in his eyes, held her hand and whispered, I was foolish. I couldn't let you go because I was scared of losing you. But I see now, love is not by force. That moment changed everything. He started therapy, joined a men's fellowship in church, and slowly transformed into a better man. Rita tried to deny it, but her heart kept pulling her back to him. After months of struggle, Pascal became a new person, calm, respectful, hardworking. One evening, he surprised Rita with a dinner and apologized again in front of her friends. For the first time, Rita saw the man she always prayed for. Against all odds, she gave him another chance. People were shocked when they got back together. Some said Rita was foolish, others said it was destiny, but they didn't care. Love had won. Years later, they got married in Lagos. Their wedding was beautiful, filled with laughter, music, and tears of joy. Everyone thought the story had ended there. But the biggest shock was still waiting. On their wedding night, Pascal revealed a secret he had kept hidden all these years. He told Rita that the reason he was always everywhere she went was not just because of obsession. He had a private deal with her father before he died. Rita's father had asked Pascal never to let his daughter fall into wrong hands because there was a family curse connected to men deceiving the women in their lineage. That was why Pascal was overprotective, even though he didn't know how to control it. Rita was stunned. She cried, not knowing whether to be angry or grateful. But at that moment, she realized everything. The chaos, the pain, the drama was all part of a love story that no one will ever forget. And that was how Rita and Pascal, after all the scandal and madness, became one. A troublesome love that turned into forever. But the real shock? Years later, someone from Pascal's past returned, and the story was not over. Rita could not believe her ears on their wedding night. Pascal's words echoed in her mind like thunder. Her father, a family curse, a secret deal. For years, she thought Pascal was just a stubborn, jealous lover, but now she discovered he had been carrying a heavy responsibility she never knew. Her heart beat fast as she looked into his eyes. Pascal wasn't lying. She could see it in his trembling hands, the way his voice shook as he confessed. Tears rolled down Rita's cheek. She remembered her late father, a strict man who always warned her about trusting men easily. He used to say, Rita, beauty is a blessing and a curse. Be careful the kind of men you allow in your life. She never understood what he meant. But now, hearing Pascal's confession, she felt like puzzle pieces were finally fitting together. Why didn't you tell me before? She whispered. Pascal sighed. I wanted to, but I was scared you would hate me or think I was using your father's words to control you. I didn't handle it well. Instead of protecting you, I suffocated you. I'm sorry. For a long time, Rita sat in silence. Her mind was torn between anger and gratitude. She hated the way Pascal had made her life miserable for years. But now she also saw him in a new light, a man who sacrificed his own peace just to keep a promise. That night, she forgave him fully, but she didn't know the story was far from over. Months into their marriage, life seemed perfect. Pascal got a good job with a construction company in Lagos. Rita continued her law career and they moved into a new house in Lekki. They went on dates, posted cute pictures on social media, and everyone who once mocked their love now admired them. But you see, happiness in Nigeria never lasts long before Wahala finds its way in. One evening, while Rita was arranging files in her office, she received a strange message on her phone. The message came from an unknown number and it read, Do you really know the man you married? Ask him about Anita. At first, she ignored it, thinking it was one of those scammers. But the next day, another message came. Pascal is hiding something from you. Anita is back. Rita's heart skipped. She showed Pascal the message, but he laughed and waved it off. Baby, don't let enemies disturb our peace. People are jealous of our happiness. Ignore it. Rita wanted to believe him, but deep inside, a seed of doubt had been planted. Weeks later, during a company dinner, Rita saw something that shook her. Pascal walked into the hall, and behind him came a beautiful lady, dark-skinned, tall, with eyes that burned with confidence. She wore a red gown that made every man stare. When she spotted Rita, she smiled mischievously and whispered something into Pascal's ear. Rita froze. Pascal looked uncomfortable. That was the night Rita first heard the name Anita from other people's lips. Anita was not just anybody. She was Pascal's ex-girlfriend from years back, and even before Rita came into the picture. But the scandalous part was that Anita claimed Pascal had promised to marry her before running back to Rita. She didn't just want revenge, she wanted her man back. From that day, Rita's marriage became shaky. Anonymous calls, strange letters, even rumors spread in their neighborhood. People started gossiping that Pascal was still seeing Anita secretly. Rita confronted him, but he swore he had cut ties with Anita long ago. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then one night, everything exploded. Rita returned home late from work and found Anita sitting comfortably in her living room. Pascal was there, looking helpless. Rita's eyes widened. Anita smiled and said, "Finally, we mate properly. You think you have won, Rita? No. Pascal belongs to me. Ask him about the child." Rita's heart almost stopped. "What child?" she asked, her voice trembling. Pascal buried his face in his palms. Anita laughed wickedly. "Yes, the child. Your loving husband has a son, and that son is mine." The room went silent. Rita felt her world crashing. Pascal tried to explain, saying it happened years before he changed, before he became responsible. He claimed Anita never told him about the boy until recently. But Rita didn't know who to believe. The pain was too much. She felt betrayed, broken, lost. The news spread quickly. Her friends called, family members whispered, social media blogs carried gist. Lagos lawyer's husband caught in secret baby scandal. Rita almost lost her mind. She stopped eating, stopped smiling. She wondered if the family curse her father warned about was now playing out in her marriage. But here's the shocking twist. Anita wasn't telling the full truth. Yes, there was a child, but the child wasn't biologically Pascal's. Anita had been with someone else during that time, but she pinned the child on Pascal to destroy his marriage. She wanted revenge because years ago, Pascal left her for Rita without proper explanation. When Rita later discovered the DNA results secretly, she was torn apart. Should she expose Anita and save her marriage, or should she keep quiet and let Pascal suffer for hiding the truth from her in the first place? The more Rita kept quiet, the more Anita grew bold. She started visiting their home, threatening Rita, mocking her in public. Rita felt cornered, but instead of breaking, she decided to play Anita at her own game. She pretended to step back, to act weak, but deep down, she was planning something big. The day of reckoning came during Pascal's birthday party. Friends, family, colleagues gathered. Even Anita showed up uninvited, carrying the little boy. She grabbed the microphone and declared, "Everyone, meet Pascal's son." Gasps filled the hall. Pascal stood frozen, embarrassed. Anita smirked, thinking she had finally won. But then Rita stepped forward calmly. She took the microphone, held up a brown envelope, and said, "Since we are revealing secrets tonight, let us tell the full truth." She pulled out the DNA test result. "This child does not belong to Pascal, Anita. You know the real father. Stop your lies." The hall went silent. Anita's face turned pale. She tried to deny it, but guests pressed her. Soon, her lies crumbled and she stormed out in shame. Pascal collapsed in tears, hugging Rita, thanking her for saving his dignity. But Rita just stood there, cold, staring at him. Because even though she defended him, her heart was still broken. He had hidden too much from her. And here comes the final shocking ending. The one that will leave people talking. Months later, when everything seemed calm again, Rita received a mysterious letter. It wasn't from Anita. It wasn't from a stranger. It was from her late father's lawyer. The letter revealed something that shook her entire being. Pascal was not just her husband, he was also a distant cousin. Her father had known this, but hid it, believing love would eventually reveal the truth. That was why he begged Pascal to protect her at all costs. Rita almost fainted reading those words. She couldn't tell anyone. She couldn't even look at Pascal the same way again. Love had turned into the deepest scandal of her life. And so the story of Rita and her troublesome ex-boyfriend turned husband ended not with happily ever after, but with a secret so heavy it left everyone who heard it speechless. Rita hid the letter for days because her hands shook each time she tried to show Pascal, and her tongue felt heavy like stone whenever she opened her mouth to speak. She could not sleep well and sometimes woke up at night to sit on the floor and read the letter again and again to be sure she was not dreaming and still sure the words did not change. Distant cousin, secret, promise, curse, protect her at all costs, and every time she read it, her heart did one silent scream and then kept beating like drum, and she would whisper to herself, "Be calm, Rita, be calm, you will not die today. Breathe, think, do not rush, do not destroy your home with speed." And then one morning she told herself, enough is enough. You cannot carry this alone. So she went to see Pastor Grace in Surulere, a gentle woman who speaks truth like cool water, and she told her everything from the wedding night confession to the strange letter and the way her mind was now like traffic on Third Mainland Bridge. And Pastor Grace held her hand and said, "Rita, secrets are like smoke inside the house. Even if you close all windows, it will still find your nose and sting your eyes. Open the windows, talk to your husband, pray together, investigate, but do not let fear choose for you." And Pastor prayed with her and said, "God is not the author of confusion." And Rita wiped her face and went home ready to talk. When she entered the house, she met Pascal in the kitchen boiling yam and whistling one high life song he always whistled when he was happy. And she wanted to run away again, but she stood and said, "Pascal, we need to talk." And she placed the letter on the table, and his smile fell like a broken cup. He read it slowly, line by line, and his eyes looked older by many years by the time he got to the end. And he sat down without talking for a long time. Then he sent one quiet sentence that made Rita's stomach twist. He said, "Rita, I did not know this part. Your father only told me to protect you from wrong men. Did not tell me we are related in any way. I saw it on everything I hold dear. I am not playing with your life." Rita believed him because of how his voice shook and how he could not look up at first. But the letter was still heavy like a brick between them. So they agreed to go to the village the next day to ask elders who know old stories, to check records, to ask questions that city people run away from because of shame. And they packed small bags and drove to the east with gospel songs playing low and their fingers touching sometimes and then pulling apart because the air between them was strange. And when they reached the village, they went straight to see Papa Obi, the oldest uncle on her father's side, and Mama Ikem, the midwife who carried half the children born in that clan. And they greeted them with cola and water and told their mission. And Mama Ikem closed her eyes for a long time and said, "I remember the night you were born. There was a big rain. Light went off in the small clinic. We used lantern. We had two women in labor at once and both delivered baby girls. Within minutes, we tied red thread on one baby and blue thread on the other because the lantern smoke was choking our eyes. And when the nurse came back from fetching warm water, she cried that the threads fell off and she was no longer sure which baby was which. And your father shouted and then carried one baby and said, 'This one looks like my mother. I know my blood.' And he would not allow anyone to argue. And that was the end. We wrote names and everybody went home. And now you're asking if there was mix-up. My daughter, I do not know, but that night was confusion." Rita felt the ground move under her feet because the story sounded like the beginning of a big river, and she asked for more details. And Mama Iken told them that about the other family that night and where they moved to many years ago. And Papa Obi said the wisest thing now is not to cry, but to check. Do a clean DNA test with your father's brother to confirm bloodline. Do it quietly. No drama, because village matter can scatter like spilled oil if you shout. They agreed to test. But back in Lagos, another fire was already waiting because Anita had not given up. She had only changed her method. While Rita and Pascal were in the east, Anita posted a short video online acting like a victim with soft tears, saying she was only fighting for the truth for her son and that rich people were trying to silence her. New gossip pages began to carry the story again with wrong captions, and people who never even knew Rita in real life began to insult her in comment sections because in this life, noise is louder than facts. When Rita returned, she was tired, but she kept calm like Pastor Grace taught her, and she and Paschal took Uncle's saliva sample and theirs to a trusted hospital in Ikeja. No flashy lab with cartoon logo this time, just a quiet place with old tiles and serious doctors. And they prayed Psalm 25 in the parking lot before they submitted the form, and they agreed no friend should know to avoid confusion. While they waited for results, another twist entered like a thief at dusk. Because a private number called Pascal late at night, and a man's voice said, "Stay away from Anita's matter if you love your peace. The child is not your headache. Focus on your home and forget the past." And before Pascal could ask who this is, the call ended. And the number did not ring again, and he did not tell Rita that night because he did not want to add fresh pepper to her wound. The next morning, Rita decided enough of shadow fighting. She told Pascal they needed a quiet investigator to look at two things at once: who sent that cousin letter and who is pushing Anita behind the scenes, because everything smelled like a cooked plan. So they met a calm man named Salisu, who looked like a teacher and spoke gently like a radio presenter. And they gave him copies of the letter and some names, and he nodded and said, "Give me time and do not chase this fire with panic. Truth moves slowly, but it still arrives." Days passed and the DNA result came back, and when Rita opened the envelope, her hand shook again. But this time she smiled with tears because the test said her blood did not match with her father's brother at all, which meant her father by blood might truly not be the man who raised her. And it also meant the so-called distant cousin story in the letter had no base, because if she and her father were not blood, then how can she and Pascal be blood cousins through that line? And a heavy load rolled off her chest. But the load did not disappear fully, because now a new question was born. Who is my real father? And why did my late father hide this from me? And was that not why he told Pascal to protect me so hard? And did he fear something big would come out if I married the wrong person? And she sat down and cried, and then laughed, and then cried again, because sometimes happiness and sadness hold hands on the same day. That same week, Salisu returned with news that changed the color of the hair in their home. He said the so-called lawyer who sent the cousin letter was real, but the letterhead he used was fake, and the watermark on the paper was from a printing house in Yaba that belongs to a certain Mr. Chooks, who happens to be Anita's cousin, and he had screenshots of Anita visiting that house 2 days before the letter was mailed. And he also had a short clip from a restaurant camera where the same lawyer sat with Anita and a heavy man who looked like a bodyguard, and they were laughing like people who trusted themselves too much. And he said he would get the audio if they gave him few more days. And Rita's mouth was open, but no sound came out. And Pascal stood up and paced the room, and then sat again because anger and relief were fighting in him. Anger because he had suffered for months under lies. Relief because they were not cousins by any blood research. And he held Rita's hands and said, "You see, I told you I did not know." And she hugged him long, and they both said sorry to each other without words. They still had to deal with Anita because lies cannot be left to sleep like that. It will wake up and shout again. And they also had to deal with the bigger shadow behind her. So they planned one calm but strong move. They invited Anita for a sit down at a popular restaurant in Lekki with neutral people present, including Pastor Grace and a quiet lawyer from Rita's firm. Not dramatic, not loud, just clean truth. And when Anita arrived, stylish as usual, Rita was the first to speak because she was tired of being quiet and tired of being bullied. And she said, "Anita, I am not your enemy, but your fight is crooked. I have proof that the child is not Pascal's, and now I also have proof you worked with a fake paper to send a cousin letter to my home. Why, Anita? Is it revenge? Is it money? Is it somebody else pushing you? Talk now and free yourself because this part ends in disgrace." And Anita blinked fast, like someone who did not expect calm boldness. And for some seconds, her mouth moved, but words did not come out. And then she laughed small, and then laughed too much, and then stopped. And she said, "Okay, fine. You want truth? Here is truth. I was angry because he left me without goodbye. I wanted to spoil his life small so he would feel what I felt. But I'm not alone. Somebody bigger wanted his name dirty so that a certain contract would not enter his company. Somebody who fears that Pascal with a clean image and a smart wife would rise fast. And the person used me and used that fake lawyer and paid some small online noise. And she looked around and then pressed her lips like a lock and said, I cannot say his name here. Lagos has ears, but I'll write it on paper. She wrote one name and slid it across the table. And when Rita opened it, her fingers went cold because it was a name she knew, a well known politician who recently started smiling around their church and acting like a saint. During Thanksgiving, a man with posters everywhere, a man who once placed a fat check in their church building fund and said he loved peace. And Rita looked at Pastor Grace, and Pastor nodded slowly, like, yes, I've always felt something off with that man's eyes. And Pascal clenched his jaw because it all made sense now. The night of the club fight, the warning call, the sudden blockage of the construction contract they were chasing, and he said, Anita, where is the boy's true father? And she smiled in a sad way and tapped the same name on the paper. And the restaurant became too quiet, and the AC sounded like a generator in the silence. They did not scream or throw plates, because wisdom carried truth carefully like a glass cup. Do not smash it in magnets. So they told Anita to bring whatever proof she had. And she nodded and said she had voice notes and bank alerts and one photo that could end careers. And they promised her legal safety if she cooperated. And Pastor Grace prayed a short prayer right there, asking God to expose wickedness without blood. And Anita started to cry like a child and kept saying, I'm tired of this life. I want peace. I want peace. The next moves were careful like doctors doing surgery. Salisu handed his files to the quiet lawyer. Anita sent the voice notes, bank alerts and a blurred video from a hotel corridor. They packaged everything and took it first to church elders and then to a judge through legal process because they wanted the matter to be clean and not like online drama. And slowly, the truth started to come out in official ways, and the politician began to dance left and right on TV interviews. And soon, a court order asked him to present himself and answer questions about payments made to the fake lawyer, harassment, and paternity of the child. And he started saying he was innocent, but the evidence was land. And Anita stood in court and said her full truth with shaking hands but clear eyes. And the judge picked slow, calm dates like hot yam to handle the case without noise. And Pascal and Rita sat on the wooden bench like ordinary Nigerians and held hands and kept quiet. Much later, when the dust of court began to settle and the politicians' masks began to fall and people started to whisper the word resignation on radio stations, another live door opened for Rita and Pascal. Because the court looked at the boy and asked who will care for him while his mother fixes her life and his father faces the law. And the social workers said the boy was safest with his mother under supervision and schooling funded by the guilty adults until final judgment. And Anita surprised everyone. She said if the court allows, she wants Rita to help mentor the boy because the boy trusts her. And she cried small and said, I am not proud of my actions. I want him to grow with truth. And the judge nodded at this act of humility and said the court will put it in writing that Rita can visit and support as an auntie. And for the first time in months, Rita slept with a soft heart because even when life is messy, a small soft thing can still bloom. When it looked like peace was finally learning their address, a fresh confession knocked on the door on a raining afternoon. Pascal's mother called him and said, My son, I cannot carry this secret anymore. Come home, bring your wife. I must talk and it must be today. And they ran under the rain to his mother's small sitting room in Festac, and she made them sit on the same long chair, and she took a deep breath like someone going underwater. And she said, When we married, I could not carry children for many years. I cried, I prayed, and then one night, a nurse cousin of mine called me and said a young girl gave birth and ran away, and the child needed a home. And I took that child and loved him and called him my son. I never told you because I loved you like my blood. Pascal, my son, forgive me. And she began to cry like a baby, and the room was full of thunder from the rain outside, but the bigger thunder was inside their chests. Rita held Mama's hands and said, Mama, you did not do evil. You saved a life. And she looked at Pascal with eyes that said, Do not break, stand strong. And he stood and hugged his mother tight and said, You are my mother by love, and that is enough. And then the meaning of everything rearranged itself in their minds like chairs before a big meeting. Now the cousin letter lie was dead forever. Now the DNA confusion was clearer. Now the reason the distant cousin rumor could even float in the air was because old records about bloodlines were not straight and everybody had been standing on stories, not facts. Still, the biggest question was, who is Rita's blood father? And why did her late father hide the truth? And the answer to that one arrived like a package with no name 2 weeks later when a brown envelope came by courier to our office with only 3 words on it: open in private. And inside the envelope was a small flash drive and one page written by her late father in his handwriting that she knew very well from school fees notes and birthday cards. And it said, "My daughter, if God allows this letter to reach you, it means the time is right. Please watch the video before you judge me. Forgive me if you can." She went to an empty meeting room, closed the blinds, plugged the flash drive into a small laptop, and played the video. And her father's face filled the screen, older than she remembered, but gentle. And he said, "My sweet girl, by now you may have seen things that confuse you. The truth is simple and hard at the same time. You came into our home from that small clinic night. We suspected a mix up, but we chose love and raised you as ours. Because love is stronger than blood. But when you became a teenager, I made a mistake. I was scared of the men who circled you like hawks. I was scared of one particular man whose money was dirty and whose hands were long. So I begged Pascal to watch you like a soldier, and I paid for things I should have prayed about. I created fear where I should have taught you wisdom. I'm sorry." And he paused and wiped his eye and continued. "I found out later that the powerful man was connected to your birth story. He was the father of the other baby born that night, and he wanted to claim you when he discovered the swap. And I refused because I could not hand you over to a man without conscience. So I hid the truth. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have told you and trusted you to choose. Please forgive me. And if this man ever comes near you again, do not be afraid. The truth will protect you. I love you beyond words." And the video ended with his hands covering the camera by mistake, and his laugh at the end made Rita weep because she missed that soft laugh. She sat there staring at the laptop and the wall and the carpet, and everything looked new and old at the same time. And she whispered, "Daddy, I forgive you. I understand now. You were flawed, but you loved me." And she sent a short text to Pascal that she said, "Come to my office now, please." And he came and she played the video and they held each other for a long time without talking because sometimes silence is the most honest language. After that day, they decided to stop living inside shadows. They chose full light. They told Pastor Grace their full story. They told Mama Ikem thank you. They told Papa Obi thank you. They even visited Anita and the boy with gifts for school, and the boy hugged Pascal like long lost uncle, and Rita's heart became soft like warm bread. Time moved like BRT bus in off-peak hour, not too fast, not too slow, and the court finally finished the matter with the politician. He lost face, he lost seat, he paid money for the child, he said sorry on TV in a careful sentence that sounded like someone biting pepper. And Lagos moved on because Lagos always moves on. And Rita and Pascal planned a small vow renewal in church to thank God for mercy, not show, just gratitude. And they invited only people who stood by them when things were rough, not the noisemakers who arrived after the storm passed. On the morning of the vow renewal, the sky was clean blue, like washed fabric. The choir was humming a soft hymn. The ushers placed simple white flowers near the altar. Anita came quietly and sat at the back with dark glasses and the little boy in a neat shirt. Salisto stood by the door like a shadow of peace. Mama Ikem came with her walking stick. Pastor Grace wore a smile that reached her eyes. And when Rita walked in with a simple gown and no heavy makeup, everyone felt calm. And when Pascal turned to look at her, his eyes shone like someone seeing sunrise for the first time. They stood before the altar, and the pastor said some sweet truth about forgiveness and new beginnings. And they read short vows that they wrote in their own simple words, no grammar, and they were about to exchange rings when a gentle commotion began at the entrance. An old driver in brown clothes rushed in with a woman in faded wrapper and a teenage girl, and he kept saying, "Please let us in, please, it is important." And the ushers tried to calm him, but Pastor signaled, "Let them come." And the driver bowed and said, "Sorry for breaking order, but I've carried this burden for too long. I used to work for the politician you all know. I was the driver the night two babies were born. I took one baby out of the clinic and gave to him, and I took another baby to a different house on his order. I did not know why. I just drove. But later I heard things and my heart died small. I left the job and I hid, but my conscience has been burning me like fire. And I came today because God told me to stop running." And he stepped aside, and the woman in faded wrapper moved forward with shaking hands and said, "My name is Chidima. I'm the other mother from that night. I've been searching for my child for many years. They told me she died. Then they told me she was stolen. I do not have power. I do not have money. I only have prayers. And last week, this driver found me and said my daughter may be alive. I may be standing in this church." And everyone turned and looked at Rita. And Pascal held her hand tighter. And Mama Ike began to cry silently because suddenly all the years folded into this one moment. And the teenage girl who came with them stood there with eyes that looked so much like Rita's eyes when she was younger, and the hall felt like it was breathing. Pastor told them to sit and breathe and pray and not to jump to conclusions. And he asked quietly for a quick swab test from both women and from Rita because sometimes the fastest way to peace is to face the truth directly. And a simple nurse from the church did the swabs and drove to the small lab nearby while the choir sang softly to calm the room. And the old church waited like people waiting for rain on a dry farm. And when the nurse returned 2 hours later with a printed page and wet eyes, Pastor read the paper slowly and looked up, and he said, "Rita, my child, the result says you are Chidima's daughter by blood, and the teenage girl is the daughter of the man who raised you." The switch was full and cruel, but today God has made truth stand up, and the old church made one sound that sounded like thunder mixed with tears. And Rita stood still like a tree, and I walked to Chidima slowly, and they ran the last steps, and they hugged, and both cried, and all the women cried, and even some men cried because pain and joy had mixed in one bowl. And then she turned and hugged her mother by love too, the woman who raised her all her life, and hugged her even tighter because love is not cancelled by new truth. Both can live in one heart. And Pascal stood there crying like a boy because his wife was breaking and healing at the same time, and he could not hold back anything. Enough shock for one day. But one more shock waited in silence like a cat, because after the service, when people were hugging and thanking God and wiping their faces, Salisu tapped Pascal and said, "There is something else. The fake lawyer wrote me last night from a hiding place. He's ready to confess on camera that the politician not only planned the cousin letter, but also planned the first club fight where they almost hurt you. And he gave me a video of the politician speaking with his fixer. And the fixer said one sentence that I cannot forget. He said, 'Make sure the boy grows up hungry so we can use him later.' And by the boy, he meant the little boy we now care for as family." And Pascal felt something snap inside because this level of wickedness was deep. And he and Rita and Pastor agreed the video must go to the right hands at once, not to blogs, to the right hands to protect the child's future and to lock wicked doors permanently. Months rolled after that day like steady wheels. Healing took time, but healing came. Rita now had two mothers in her life, one by love and one by blood, and she honored both and visited both and never allowed anyone to compare them like products. Pascal's mother became even sweeter because secret was gone. Pascal himself became softer and stronger. His jealousy melted into quiet care because therapy and truth had washed his heart. Anita kept her distance and focused on raising her son with peace. The politician faded from the front page and faced his matters. Salisu opened a small security school for young men to learn honest work because he said Lagos needs more good watchers, not more gossips. And Pastor Grace smiled more because her children had chosen light. Now you may think this is the end, but let me leave you with the final twist that will make people talk for days, not because it is dirty, but because it is deep. One evening, as the sun was falling and the sky was orange like Fanta, Rita received a new brown envelope, no return address. Inside was a short will printed years ago. and a small key and a note in her late father's handwriting that said, I am proud of you, my daughter. If you're reading this, it means you have chosen truth over fear. Use this key to open the old wooden chest in the small store behind our old house in Surulere. Inside, you'll find the adoption paper from Paschal from long ago, and one more thing you never knew. And when they opened the chest that night, with torchlight and heartbeats, they found a sealed file with hospital stamp and a photo of two baby girls wrapped the night they were born. And behind the photo was a short line written by the nurse on duty, the same nurse who had made the mistake in the lantern smoke. And the line said, I swapped the threads by accident and I kept quiet because I feared I would lose my job. I'm sorry, please forgive me. And under that paper was a small envelope with a ring inside and a letter to Pascal saying, this ring belongs to the man who saved your life the night you were almost stolen as a baby. He put the ring in your blanket and ran. He was caught, jailed, and died. His name was the same name as the politician's driver who confessed in church. Which means the man who died saving you was the same driver's brother. And when they told the driver, he fell on his knees and wept because his family's shame turned into quiet honor in 1 second. And the whole web of their story tied itself like fine hair braids, pain and mercy, loss and gain, lie and truth. And the final drop of shock fell when Rita fitted the ring on Pascal's finger and whispered the words that closed everyone's wound. She said, "You are the boy who chased me too hard. Yes, but you are also the boy God sent to stand between me and darkness before I even knew my own name." And the choir in their hearts sang a soft amen as the lights of Lagos blinked in the distance like stars that refused to sleep. That is how a troublesome love turned into a wise love, a scandal turned into a testimony, and how secrets that tried to break a home became stones that built a stronger house. And if you see Rita and Pascal walking in Lekki, with a small boy holding Pascal's left hand, and a teenage girl laughing on Rita's right, and two mothers gossiping behind them in low voices, please do not ask them for the full gist. Just smile and say, God bless your family. Because if we start the story again, we will not sleep tonight. And yet, there's one last whisper only for those who love deep endings. The day the teenage girl gained admission to the university in Enugu, she asked to see the first place her mother and father, by love, had met years ago. And they took her to that campus and sat under the same old tree where young Rita first told young Pascal to give her space. And the girl laughed and said, thank you both for growing up. And Pascal squeezed Rita's palm and said, forever. And she squeezed back and said, forever. And the wind carried their promise like a quiet song across the field. The end. Thanks for watching.